Alright guys, such a comic again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. LA Thieves get their first victory since bringing Nero onto the team last night. Not exactly the most impressive win you are ever going to see against the Vancouver Surge. Plenty of talking points on that, and especially FormaL gives his thoughts on some of his descendants as an AR player over the years, putting Dashy, putting Sib in that category. He says Scrap is a similar player as well, but Scrap is not so convinced. But I must intro to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. We're going to dive straight into that series last night. I don't know why TJ still doesn't have a camera on, but he did pop a nice little play in the Search and Destroy. No surprises there. It's the Pioneer. Now, Thieves took the game one. I actually thought Surge were going to win this. I mean, it looked like they were for some time. Thieves do manage to clutch it at the end. It was a close-fought series against Surge, and the problem, I guess, is that it's not like Surge played good COD. I don't think watching that series that Surge were especially impressive. There was many moments where they looked kind of like the same team that we saw from them in stage one. Yeah, it's not great for Surge. Thieves, they get over the line. It wasn't incredibly pretty. Nero comes in, of course, for Kenny. There's a lot of expectation on the shoulders of him to at least deliver something a little bit more consistent, but I think many would argue this looked very similar to how it did with Kenny. Not to say that that's going to be the way that it is forever, but there is a general feeling that there needs to be more from the Thieves boys, especially the core trio of Scrap, aBeZy and HyDra, who should on paper be mixing it up with absolutely anyone. But it doesn't feel like right now they've got what it takes against the top teams just yet. Again, it's their first series with Nero. I do think they can be pretty good in this stint. I do wonder what it's going to look like, you know, when they get to LAN and all that type of stuff in Birmingham. But, like, Surge won this Search and Destroy, and they played this round like pussies. It was unbelievable. They decided not to plant the bomb. There was 20 seconds left. You gotta go for it. They just waited. They bided their time way too long. They waited for Gwinn to get a pick on the pinch, which he did. But by the time he did, there was just no time left on the clock. And yeah, the boys, Miles and Chance, were mind blown as to what they were watching this round. But it didn't matter because TJ did redeem himself with a actually fantastic ace a couple of rounds later here. So this was 4-3 at the time. TJ gets 2, TJ gets 3 onto Scrap, and then he drops down low and hits the ace onto Nero as well, wrapping around the right-hand side of the map. So yeah, nice little ace out of TJ. In fact, we did get it from his perspective as well shortly afterwards, especially this gunfight here onto Scrap. We know they've got a pretty fun relationship, but it didn't matter. Map 3, HyDra took over the game. I think I will say about Thieves, the final couple of maps, there was definitely a bit more objective work being done by their heavy slayers. We saw this a little bit in their scrims against OpTic the other day. It felt like HyDra and Scrap were trying to do a little bit more on the map in terms of objective work. aBeZy, should he be the hill kitten? You know, not really. You wouldn't expect it anyway. He does have some of the highest hill time in the league so far this year, which is a no-brainer when you're playing with Scrap and HyDra, but it does feel like they're trying to improve that to a certain extent. Again, did this series feel pretty similar to ones that we've seen with Kenny before? Yes, but there are some interesting developments. Scrap went double positive. He completely took over the game 4. Nearly had 2 minutes in the hill as well, which you very rarely see. So I think there's definitely some conversations in terms of the way that Scrap and HyDra can help the boys out a little bit more. But yeah, Nero, he did the post-game interview and said that his name was actually going to be Jimbo, but there was already a pro called Jimbo. Famously got banned for cheating shortly afterwards, so he changed his gamer tag. And it's not like he had a sensational debut, but it was good enough, and the team got over the line. Nero had a .87 in the end, so not anything special. It was HyDra and Scrap both in the 1.3s, so no real surprises there. The game 3, especially HyDra with 3 goals in addition to aBeZy. It was a very high scoring den overload, and then the game 4, it was Scrap with most of the hill time, was pretty interesting. So look, I don't think HyDra's ever going to go near the hill, to be honest. I know that game 1 he did have the most time on the team, so maybe both of them are doing it. But, you know, HyDra will probably just keep running around. If there's one of the ARs, if there's one of those real stars that could do a bit more hill time, it's probably Scrap. And we'll talk a little bit more about him in a second. Toronto, though, they've lost 7 series in a row. I would be surprised at this point if next weekend they turn up with the same roster. It's the longest losing streak they've ever had as Ultra, or now they are as Koi. ReeaL says, GG's Ravens and FaZe have been underperforming lately, not acceptable by my standards. I've got no excuses, sorry to the fans. So we'll see what happens next to ReeaL. Could he go back to Heretics? I don't know if that relationship is totally cooked or if they'd even want him, to be honest. But yeah, it looks pretty plausible that they will look to bring in Kips. Could Insight go? Could ReeaL go? I think JoeDeceives and CleanX back on the subs surely has got to be the medium term or the short term solution. Whether it actually works in the medium term is another question. Joe's banging his head against a brick wall effectively, so doesn't look like he's enjoying himself. And he was basically unkillable for quite some time. The last couple of series, his level has dropped off a lot. And that's not just, I think, on Joe, oh wow, he's washed up. Like, this is clearly not the case. It's a team composition thing, but also I just don't think he's happy with the state of things. And that affects his gameplay as well. The process, 2 days from now, they're dropping a documentary looking back at that first major in Dallas, so pretty great stuff. Of course, there was all the talk about the delay for the process last year, but looks like the new boys are totally on it in terms of production time, so excited to see that one come through. But speaking of, well, the process, because Pred was definitely a key component of some of those episodes over the last couple of years, certainly with the drama that happened middle of last year and the start of last season. He's now with the Falcons, and I do want to share this clip because it caused a lot of controversy, really. People were saying, oh, well, there was some arguments to say, wow, chemistry's cooked, Pred wants Exnid gone and all this. I really don't think that's the takeaway here. I think this is from the Thunder from Down Under episode that just came out on Pred's channel. And look, I think it's nice to see, yeah, Pred's getting paid a lot of money to play for the Falcons, but you can still see that the passion, the desire, the energy to try and win and be as good as they can as a team is still very much there for Pred. He's got a lot more experience than Exnid has playing at this type of level. Certainly on LAN, I think that's the question. Exnid, we've seen his online play lately. He's been very good. He's popping 5 sprees, 6 sprees, 8 sprees, taking over games. But on LAN, we didn't see the same Exnid, and I think Pred recognises that. And I still think there's progress for Exnid to make, but, you know, he needs to deliver on LAN at some point. And Pred's trying to drill that into him to say, look, there are some issues that we're having, and you're having specifically. We're going to try and help you solve them.
I think all comes with social. Why do you think I come to so shit? Because I know why, but I want to hear why you think that shit. I know it's on you. I know you made the mistake. Yeah. But what in that moment makes you feel like that? So that obviously means in your head that you're anxious, bro. Like the thing is, you can't be in denial. Like you just have to admit it. The way I want you to think when you play for the rest of this tournament, for the rest of your career, the way I want you to think is if your teammate ever calls someone one shot, if your teammate ever says last guy alive, we're missing one, your mindset should be to kill the guy. That's it. Fucking kill him as if he just fucking took your fucking baby from you. Fucking hunt this guy down. This guy just took your fucking family away and he's alive at the back. Fucking kill him like complete aggression.
Away from the best. Again, it's just a 2-3-5. That is what collapsed.
Like Brandon and like Dante will like admit that like they come from like my tree, but like Scrap's there too. But like he's like the troublemaker that ran away from home, and he's like, I don't fuck with that family. But he still came from it. You know what I mean? Like, he's not gonna admit it publicly. But we know.
They could have won that
He packed all his shit up and ran away. I'm like, fine, get the fuck out then. Fuck your 18. Fuck it then. Move to LA and shit. Yeah, Ern, since you're here, I actually have a question for you. Do you think that you're part of my my tree, my like AR tree? Because like Brandon and Dante will happily admit they're like descended from my tree. But will you admit that? Or was I right?
Both teams kind of talking through stuff.
It's actually a win-win here for me, so you might as well just give in. Nah, it's from the tree of God. All right, there it is.
Come in and lose a hardpoint map they have not lost. They've been the best.
So FormaL loves talking about this whole descendants of him kind of style, right? Because when he came into the Pro League, certainly Advanced Warfare and beyond, he quite quickly became the most, notorious, feared AR in the game. It was him and Clay in the early days, and Slasher and Octane, and there were other rivals, but mostly during that period, FormaL was that guy. And also in some respects, he redefined how the game was played from an AR perspective, just because, especially in that era, he played with an awful lot of pace. That was not the case very shortly before. Now, of course, the games changed that. In Black Ops 2 and Ghosts, the AR players were pretty static. There was a role known as the anchor, which is basically what it sounds like. You sit at the back of the map and you anchor the spawns. That's not how FormaL played the game, and it wasn't just about FormaL, of course, but because he'd come over from Halo, and that style started to infect, and for good reason, many of the other players during the Jetpack era. And when we came out of the Jetpack era, the ARs didn't go back to what they were doing before in a game like World War II. They kept kind of, you know, you could argue playing like FormaL or whatever. So FormaL then says that the new generation that was coming up during that time period, the likes of Dashy, who was around then, Cebu came around a few years after, you know, similar players to FormaL, not yet in terms quite of, well, accolades, at least in Sib's case. Dashy's got 2 rings, FormaL only got 1. So, you know, there is that, but of course FormaL won like 20 odd events or whatever over a substantial time period. But he thinks Scrap falls into a similar category, right, of very talented, high-pace AR that take after FormaL in some regard. Now, I don't think Scrap was watching FormaL's VOD and trying to replicate his playstyle when he was like 13 years old. Unlikely. But FormaL wants to think, well, I was the, you know, the granddaddy that came before, and all these other ARs wouldn't be the same player that they are if it wasn't for me, to a certain extent. And Dashy will certainly agree with that assessment, maybe Sib will as well, but Scrap isn't so convinced. So yeah, intrigued to your thoughts on that in the comment section below as always. And Scrap obviously gave his perspective, as we saw in the replies. But LA Thieves, they are back in action again today. These are the games of the weekend. We have had 7 of them. These are the games of tonight. So plenty going on right now. Gentlemates play Heretics. This is going to be really interesting because Heretics took down FaZe the other day. Can they replicate that kind of performance? Can Trakes keep playing at that level? Can Super keep playing at the level? Because Super against FaZe is often doing pretty well. We'll see how he gets on against Gentlemates, because they had a slow start against the Falcons, then they turned it around. Falcons themselves then play Boston. This, I think, for Boston is borderline must-win territory now, because if they lose this to Falcons, they're starting 0-2. It doesn't look good for them, and they could have made a change after Major 1. They elected not to do so. So that's kind of borderline must win. Falcons, I wouldn't say it's must win for them, but they obviously are the favourites to win. Thieves Ravens is the fascinating series of the day, really. Like, this is the Exceed Ravens online absolute warriors that have not lost a series online yet. And then, of course, got the new Thieves with Neum, and some high expectations for that Thieves roster for sure. In terms, I think the general feeling is that their floor should be higher as a team with Neum, which I would tend to agree with. But I don't know if their ceiling theoretically would be the same. It's why the question is Neum going to fix the Thieves? Now, I'm not sure he will, at least on the business end of tournaments, but in online play, I do want to think that Thieves should be better, even though what we saw yesterday was a bit questionable. Again, it's kind of tough to go against the Ravens on a 6 online win streak. Obviously at LAN, it was a very different story. But and then they played online, didn't they, the most recent stage? Thieves nearly won, but Ravens took it in the end, game 5, round 11 or something. So yeah, this should be a real tasty one. Tough to call for sure. And then G2 played Cloud9. Our first look at the new Cloud9 team and see how those guys are going to get on. Of course, it's effectively many of the former Stallions. And G2, after their performance against OpTic yesterday, they shouldn't have any difficulties here. I guess the question is, do Cloud9 win a map? That'll be what people will debate. So very much intrigued to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
Merc might have something more AIDS.
He has the fucking...
His hand sweating, that shit's AIDS.
Yeah, and he's also fried.
Yeah, but that hand sweating shit, that shit would check me out.
Yeah, that's why, that's why, oh, dude, there's sometimes he's soaking Scrap and he's wiping his hands, and then, like, he died once in a VOD, and I was crying, and then he brought up after, he was like, I look, he thought I had a timing. I thought I had a timing to fucking wipe my hands. He's soaking Scrap.
This guy's insane.
He's actually him for that. You know, I swear I could relate, though, like, with, like taking a sip of water, bro. Sometimes I go for it, and sometimes I die, and I feel brain dead.